Thank you for listening to this Podcast One production. Now available on Apple Podcasts, Podcast One, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
The following episode of Killer Genes contains graphic and sensitive information and material. Listener discretion is advised.
On this episode of Killer Genes, exclusive new information into the death of teenager Thomas Brown from Canadian Texas.
And that's when we started going, uh-oh, we've got a cover-up going on here.
And why corruption has jolted the small town and the investigation.
If this leaks, let me tell you something. You and I got a problem. I'll come find you.
Emmy-nominated true crime journalists bring you cases like you've never heard them before. Hear first-hand accounts from the victims' families, private investigators, lawyers, law enforcement, and even the convicted. Giving you a complete 360 of the case like no one else can.
I'm Melissa McCarty.
I'm Kelly McClear.
And this is Killer Genes.
I'll See You Tomorrow were the words last uttered by Thomas Brown to his two best friends, Caleb and Christian. They were last together the night before Thanksgiving of 2016.
Thomas and his two friends were driving around their hometown of Canadian Texas in Hemphill County, a town with around 3,000 residents in it and an extremely low crime rate. A cloud of darkness and mystery rarely ever loomed over its people, until the night Thomas Brown went missing.
Canadian was named after the nearby Canadian River, a quaint town within the High Plains. Thomas stood out not only because he was 6 feet tall and built like a professional athlete, he was also a star football player and class president. The 18-year-old wasn't someone who fits the profile of a runaway, a label that would soon brand him like a scarlet letter. The night of November 23rd, 2016. It's when Thomas Brown disappeared.
But Thomas's body was discovered 3 years later in 2019. His cause of death remains controversial, highly contested, and the case has divided law enforcement at the highest levels and the family from its community.
The story that has never been told, and we're starting to tell the story now, and that's why I think your podcast is a great place to start telling this story.
Philip Klein, hired by Thomas's mom, Penny Meek, is a highly respected private investigator who's worked high-profile cases for decades. Because of an unfortunate stalemate in the case, Klein is revealing new information and the real story of what happened during Thomas Brown's death investigation.
The case began with me going up on a Sunday and arriving in Hemphill County, talking and doing the interview with the parents. And then that night, on a Sunday night, I interviewed probably till 3 a.m, about 6 or 7 kids. So, this is what we call a hot case. That means that we're not coming in cold. We're not coming in, 8-9 months later. We're coming in hot within 4 days of the missing persons. And I went in and I talked to the sheriff first thing Monday morning. I walked in, said, "Hi, my name's Philip Klein. Been hired by the Meek family. You can Google me, read all about me. I always carry my CV with me. Here's my CV. You can see who I am, what I do, my training. And my crew is not here with me. I'm up here by myself, just kind of seeing what's going on." And the first response I got from the former sheriff, Nathan Lewis, is, "Oh, he's a weirdo. He's a quote-unquote fag. And he's probably in North Carolina, South Carolina, or L.A. at MMA, I guess, MMA camps, martial arts camps."
Now, mind you, this is a new sheriff. Yeah, this is a very new...
this is a new sheriff. Yeah, a young guy. Young guy.
I mean, just green in the profession in general. So I'm sure as a veteran, you were taken back by that.
It took the breath out of me because I looked at him and I said, "Well, what leads you to believe that?" "Oh, well, we think he parked his truck underneath a tree near this apartment complex and walked out by the rodeo arena and was picked up by a trucker. So we think that's how he got out of here, on a truck." And I said, "Really? Okay, what leads you to believe that?" "Well, it's the only logical conclusion."
On the evening of November 23rd, security video captured Thomas's truck driving around town, stopping to get gas using his mom's credit card and leaving the station. But he never came home. When Thomas didn't make it home at his curfew that night, his family became worried and sprung into action. His brother Tucker drove the streets looking for him.
They couldn't find him. At 5:58 in the morning, on a camera in downtown, we've got him. We've got the car. We don't have him. We have the car coming by a camera. One, two. We do have him on a secondary camera in a park right where the car was found, where his little Dakota was found, kind of nestled in a kind of stashed, actually. The police found it. Actually, a helicopter pilot found it.
Yes, it was his friend Christian's father who owned the company and flew around and spotted it, right?
Absolutely. And so when they spotted it, what they did was they called it into the police. The police arrived, and the scene is set up this way. The car is parked underneath kind of a semi-small group of trees. There are no keys, okay? And the most important thing I want everybody to know is there was a urine spot that was next to the car that was about 2 foot by 1.5 feet, which indicates to all of us that it was a male that was standing there, because obviously from the photography you could tell when a man urinates and when a woman urinates. And the car had a bloody swipe on the passenger side door, and there was a .25 caliber shell casing that was found on the passenger side. And so that's how the car was found.
Mr. Klein, wasn't there also some other items missing from the vehicle at that time?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
But I also just want to mention to people, even though it's a small town, the truck was found in a very remote area where his family says and his friends say that he more than likely didn't know. None of the locals knew about the location where this truck was. And, they know the back roads very well. Yeah, it was by a water plant. It was just a dirt road, unpaved.
And, of course, that was the first question I asked to a lot of his friends on that first Sunday was, is this a place where you guys hang out? They go, ooh, no, it's the sewage plant. We don't hang out at the sewage plant.
After Thomas's truck was found, Private Investigator Klein went to see Sheriff Nathan Lewis and the deputies working the case.
So, Monday was very important for us because we asked the simple questions. Okay, where's the car? Well, we gave it back to the family. You did what? You gave it back to the family. Did you do luminol the car? No. Did you search the car? Well, yeah, we looked around in it. No. Did you do a forensic search of the car? No. Why not? Well, and then we found out that they actually had a prisoner help them look through the car. And then we were like, okay, we've got a definite situation here. So what we did that first week was we put the drones up, we took a look of where the dogs had been. They had sent the dogs in on that Saturday from a local prison up there, and the dogs hit on a trail all the way over to the Canadian River. I got to be honest with y'all, we're in the business of trusting law enforcement. I mean, that's just the way it is. We trust them. We trust them with our lives. We trust them with our direction of our investigations. We share everything with them. We're not in the business of not sharing. We share. We have one goal and one goal only. Find the boy. Where is he? Bring him home. That's our goal. We have no other goal. We don't care. We don't care if the sheriff is a 15-term sheriff or a 2-month-old sheriff. We don't care. Bring the kid home. Make the sheriff look good. So on that Monday, which kind of really got us a little nervous, was we started finding out, they said, of course, that, look, he got on a truck and he's probably in North or South Carolina, or he's gone to California. So immediately our office back in Southeast Texas put out what we call a BOLO, be on the lookout. And we put out BOLO posters to every single patrol car that we could in any small town, big town, county, wherever in South Carolina and North Carolina, because law enforcement told us that's where he is. We're like, oh, okay, we'll start there. And then we put BOLOs out in the Los Angeles area because they said, well, he may have gone to MMA camp in Los Angeles. Again, you go with what law enforcement tells you. So we did, and we got, and I mean zero hits, zero communication, zero hits from law enforcement out there. And we were concerned with that because usually these kids that run away, which we were told he was a runaway, remember that we were told he was a homosexual, mentally deranged kid that ran away from home.
And I still can't just brush over that. Why? What was their headspace on that? Was it gossip within the community or what?
No, they interviewed some kids and said that he had a fetish. His fetish was wearing diapers and peeing in a diaper. And we were like, okay, what does that have to do with a kid running away? Well, some of the kids may have found out, and they may have tried to tease him.
Mean-spirited gossip spread on social media and throughout the small corridors of this community, infiltrating the investigation, and some would even say tainting common sense. The reality was Thomas had plans with his family and friends the very next day, and the entire holiday weekend for that matter.
What I found most chilling during the first few hours was the video of his truck driving certain locations. And then you see his older brother, Tucker, who went the same path as his brother's truck 9 minutes later, but they never intersected.
That's right. It was a situation of circumstances. And, everybody says that's kind of weird. But you know what? Thank God Tucker didn't find the truck. Because who knows who was driving that truck. And now that we've investigated it, 4 years? No, 5 years now? Now that we've investigated it thoroughly, there was a killer driving that car. There was video and a picture of him pumping the gas. I saw it. One of my senior investigators, MJ Holmes, saw it. Penny Meek saw it. They showed it to her. And it's been one of the big points of contention between us and law enforcement. We all saw it, and they're saying the initial sheriff in the thing was saying no, that was never there. But later he admits that he did get from the Dollar General store just south of the gas station. He did have video, but he destroyed the video because, it didn't show anything. Now, who does that?
Right.
I mean, that you just don't destroy evidence. That's just craziness.
Well, and speaking of destroying evidence, though, Penny has the truck, his vehicle. So so local law enforcement didn't do any forensics on it. When did you step in and do that?
So that brings us to the Tuesday or Wednesday when we got into town, and after I questioned them on forensics, they went back over and they got the car and they took it back over to the sheriff's department, Sallyport. They took it apart. Again, they inventoried it, which was never really a true inventory until we got it and we inventoried it. They took a sample of the blood swipe. It was Tom's blood. And if my memory serves me correctly, that's when they found the .25 caliber shell casing. So they knew at that point, they were saying, no, we're sticking with this. We have no evidence. We have got nothing that shows us any nefarious activity.
Wait,
and
could that .25 caliber bullet at that time in 2016 when his vehicle was found, could that casing have been planted?
No, I do not believe it was planted. I do not. I think they missed it. I think they were embarrassed when they found, or the sheriff was embarrassed, not his crew. I think they were embarrassed when they found it the second time. They did not want us to find it, right? They didn't want us to find it. And so when they announced to us they found it, and then all of a sudden a Texas Ranger by the name of Mike Smith showed up, and he started in on the case, that's when we said, okay, now they're thinking like we are. Something's not right. And we tried so desperately to keep a good relationship with this young sheriff and his crew. Once I got my team up there, we started really immediately during that month of December and January. We were up there, I think, 3 or 4 or 5 times, and we were searching. Well, to make a long story short, all of the interviews I was doing with all of his friends, and all the interviews we were doing with, and MJ Holmes was doing with townspeople and actually flight operations in a helicopter, time distance studies. And the greatest thing we had, one of the greatest clues Tom left us was his car. Remember, he filled it up with gas. And we were able to get the actual mileage based upon how much gas was in the car when it was found. And we just used top full of gas. We got Chrysler, I guess they were called Delmer back then. We got their engineers to get us a study on how far with this amount of gas, somewhere in the middle to the low range to the high range, how many miles this car actually went. And we were able to give scenarios, and all scenarios pointed towards a road called Lake Marvin Road, which is just across the Canadian River. Now, they say Canadian River, it's like a creek or a creek, but right across the Canadian River from where his car was found. And we were able to trace it out through the back roads off of a road called Road K, all the way back down to Lake Marvin Road. Then the big meeting happened with us and the sheriff and Texas Ranger and one of the investigators and my whole team that was in town at the time. I think there were 5 of us in town. And they said, okay, tell us what you got. And so we laid out our case. Simply, the time distance study doesn't match. We believe, and I remember like it was yesterday, I said, we believe he's deceased. We believe he is out on Lake Marvin Road. And the Texas Ranger and the sheriff just started laughing at us. Now, one of our team members is a decorated, her name is Trace Sargent. You can look her up. She's one of the most decorated federal, state, local law enforcement officers on the East Coast. When 9/11 happened, I heard people up there. She's been in Afghanistan hunting bodies. She's got a dog named Chance that is probably one of the most quintessential animals that trace human remains. And Trace looked at him and kind of like, why are you laughing at us? We've really been working hard. At that point, we had about, all of us man-hour wise, we had about 180 hours into the case, which they maybe had 20 or 30 because they just said, he's a runaway. He's a runaway. That's all he is. He's a gay runaway. And a dysfunctional gay runaway. He kept telling us, dysfunctional. He's dysfunctional. Okay, he's dysfunctional. But why did he run away? Well, we don't know that. We'll never know that. Well, what do you mean you'll never know that? What does that mean? And then they started getting upset with us because we were asking them questions rather than us asking those questions.
That was the end of the working relationship between the sheriff's department and Klein. But he and his team of investigators stayed the course.
I understand that there was a debit card found in the vehicle that did not belong to Thomas. Can you explain that a little bit?
There's a young man whose debit card was found in his car, right? And we asked the young man, how'd the debit card get in there? He says, we drive around all the time. It could fall out of my pocket anytime you want. But it was in a weird part of the car. It was found in the back seat of the car. Now, you may say, well, why is that weird? Well, because the back seat, let's just put it this way. Tom was not a clean type guy in his car. His car was a filthy mess. It could have been one of the greatest petri dishes that we'd ever have, but it had already been searched twice by the police. The family had been in it once. So anything we could have found was obviously not usable first, but second, most importantly, had been moved. And so the debit card had been moved. It was in the back seat, and we found that. And so we went to the young man, and which, his father eventually killed himself. And we asked him, the family, we said, what's this doing in the back seat of the car? It probably just fell out of my pants. Well, let me ask you this question. When was the last time you were in Tom's car? Well, that's when our relationship with that family went down the hill because they said, we don't know, we don't remember, and our son's not going to turn into a suspect in this case. Thank you all very much.
Did police ever question him?
Well, the police questioned him. Everybody's questioned this boy. And then eventually things loosened up a little bit. We re-questioned him again later, about a year or two later. We re-questioned him again. His story didn't match his first story, but some of it did, some of it didn't. But we have always looked at this young man, and since he's the suspect in our eyes, or a person of interest in our eyes, we're just going to kind of we're not going to talk about him other than there's a guy we're looking at. Everything continued to point towards, we had a crime, we had a homicide, we had a missing person. The blood swipe, everybody said, was, just a knuckle swipe. Well, we luminoled the car, and we found blood pooling. We found spatter. And at an angle, whereas a gunshot wound could have possibly come at the neck base or the neck or that area, and he slumped over to the left. We interviewed the kids out there at the football field. Well, they said nothing was going on that night. Everybody went in early. There was a couple of people floating around, and one of the persons that was floating around, and another one who is in prison right now, was floating around, and they were out at the football stadium. So right then and there, we knew we were going down the right path. At the same time, the sheriff began a misinformation campaign on us. Philip Klein, he's nothing but a liar. Oh, look at this on the internet about Philip Klein. Look at that. Look at this. And he used other people to do it. He used the fire chief. He used the Canadian Record. He used Chris Samples up in Amarillo to put doubt in their minds about us in our investigation. Of course, we get that every once in a while, but not as in-depth and as mean as it was.
Despite the division with local law enforcement, Klein couldn't shake the feeling that Lake Marvin Road was an area of interest. He and his team were certain that Thomas Brown or clues and evidence could be there.
The reason for such certainty, it's the same area where Thomas's backpack was found by a lineman worker. Klein and his team set up a search grid.
We found school books that were Tom's. We found some tennis shoes that were Tom's, clothing that was Tom's, that was identified by his family as Tom's. We had turned it over to law enforcement, and I think that's when they began to get worked up. Because we were like a dog with a bone. We weren't getting off of Lake Marvin Road, and we weren't searching anywhere else.
During the grid search, Klein's team found a cell phone. But could it have been Thomas's? Did it look like it had any sort of signs of degradation?
Pristine. No. Pristine. Like you just took it out of the box. And that's one of the things MJ Holmes was actually got to the phone first, and she looked at it. She got excellent photography. Sheriff Brent Clapp, the chief deputy Brent Clapp, had taken some great photography of it. MJ got great photography of it. We bagged, we tagged it. And nobody, and we even, I think, and I don't want to speak for Brent Clapp, but he even said, "Man, that's not Tom's phone because nothing would look this good." And I said, "You're right, nothing would look this good." So we searched. We did find other evidence that I just don't want to talk about, all the way down until the 12-mile mark. And at the 12-mile mark, when we crested the little hill right there is a sheriff's deputy unit. And we're like, well, what's he doing parked opposite side of the road? And we kind of looked at each other and said, okay, well, just keep searching. Well, one of our guys went down there and said, we need to get through this area over here. He said, no, we've got an operation going on in this area. We don't want you in this area. And we're like, what? We've got an operation going on in this area. We don't want you in this area. We said, oh, okay. Again, listen to law enforcement. We're not going to break the law. I mean, we're not going to lose our licenses and anything else and break the law. It's just not going to happen.
Tests were run on the cell phone almost 2 years after Thomas disappeared, and oddly enough, it was the teen's phone. But how was it in such good condition after supposedly being out in the elements for so long?
Yet another mystery to this case includes that of the deputy who was also in the same area as the grid search. So let's talk about Officer Gregory.
Pine Gregory. Now, am I saying Pine Gregory did it? No, I'm not. Not at all. Not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that is a highly circumstantial situation there.
It seems super fishy to me. I mean, I don't want to sound accusatory here, but they just so happen to have some, search in that area for some other incident that you're not allowed to go to.
It's also the area Tom's mom, Penny, wanted to search, and sheriffs told her no. Meanwhile, clues kept coming in from the forensic on Thomas's cell phone.
They were able to break into the phone. They were able to download information on the phone, and the phone the first thing is it was Tom's phone. That's what blew us all away. Pristine condition, Tom's phone. Second, it confirmed everything that we already had from the satellites and from the cell towers, is the phone was turned off at 12, I believe it was 12. It was tracked in that area by his house and by the stadium. So that confirmed with us. Well, the OAG, Office of Attorney General, had agreed to step into the case. And at the behest of a Texas Ranger, which I do not have it confirmed that it was Mike Smith, but at the behest of a Texas Ranger, they said, well, Penny Meek threw it out there, or Philip Klein did, just to throw us all off. So they confronted me with it.
Wait, first of all, in your whole career in life, has this ever been directed towards you with some kind of accusation such as this?
The simple answer is no. I have worked with federal, state, local. I've worked with so many different law enforcement agencies that we work like hand in glove, and we've been able to solve cases exponentially and quickly. And these guys, it was like a fight with them. It was like a consistent fight behind the scenes. We would never say anything. They would come out and start misinformation campaigns. So when they presented me with, oh, we think you planted it, this is just a publicity stunt on your behalf, I just said, well, how can we solve that? And they go, we want you to go to Austin, take a polygraph test. I said, whose car are we taking? And they looked at me like I was an alien. They said, what do you mean? I said, I want to go, and I want to go now. Let's go. Let's get this behind us. Oh, we'll get to it, Klein. No, we'll get to it right now, because this is my credibility. And I'm going to tell y'all something. If this leaks, and I look right at the sheriff, I said, if this leaks, let me tell you something. You and I got a problem. I'll come find you, because I'm done with this. I am so done with this. And then finally, Rachel Kading, who was a sergeant with the OAG, said, no, Philip, look, we just got to take you off the board. I said, great, let's go. So I went down to Waco, Texas to do, I forget whose headquarters, I want to say DPS. And I went in, and the polygraph examiner sat me down. He examined me for about an hour and a half. Then he did the test on me, and I passed with a 99.9 percentile. Nobody gets that. I got it. Why? Because the truth is the ultimate defense. The truth is the truth. And I told the truth. Then all of a sudden I was the darling. Oh, well, wait a minute. Maybe you didn't do it. Well, Penny did it. What do you mean Penny did it? Well, who else would have done it? And I said, I don't know. Who had access to the car? Who had the phone? And that's when we started going, uh-oh, we've got a cover-up going on here.
3 years later, after constant pushbacks investigating this case, a call comes in. Thomas's body had been found.
They said they got a body. I said, where at? Lake Marvin Road. Where on Lake Marvin Road? How the hell did we miss it? I got kind of angry. And they said, well, you remember where Pine Gregory was parked? I was like, yeah, about 500 yards from there. I said, are you kidding me? No, 500 feet, excuse me. I said, are you kidding me? No, I'm not. So I tried to get Rachel on the phone, couldn't get her on the phone, couldn't get anybody on the phone. So finally she called, and she said, hey, Philip, it looks like it's going to be Tom. I said, okay, good. We got a body. That's great. She goes, yeah, but there's not much left. There's a skull here, a bone here. The hogs have gotten to it. It's just not a good deal. And all we got is bones. I said, okay. She goes, we're packaging up. We're doing a line search with a bunch of, I think they were students from a law enforcement academy over in Amarillo, and we've got the game wardens out here. We got a lot of people out here. I said, okay. I said, do I need to come up? She says, no, I just don't think it's I mean, what are you going to do? I said, you know what? You're right. What am I going to do now? She goes, we'll get with you. So about a week later, they got positive identity from the dental, and then the big announcement was made that, yes, in fact, it was Tom. So I was kind of like, okay, at this point, we got a body. We got a cop that was blocking us from searching that area. And, of course, that infuriated Trace. It infuriated all of us, because we were like, this would have been done, a year ago. I mean, what are we doing here?
The death ruling remains undetermined because there isn't enough of his remains for an autopsy. Plus, officials are sticking with the ruling that there are no signs of foul play.
So if Tom's death is ruled undetermined, where did the suicide theory start from? Where did that
And let me interject
start?
here, and I hope that it's okay to bring this up, because I know it was mentioned only once before. But there are suicides in her family, right? Is that how the thing all was brought up? Was that like a community uttering? And I hope, by the way, and before we go into this conversation, the community there, which I went there, spent about a week, and I think it's, a lovely town, but it is disheartening to hear that people in the community are stigmatizing this family. And it actually pisses me off. And it's this family has been through so much.
That's right. And it should make you very angry. And the citizens of Hemphill County should be angry that this has even happened. Let me tell you something. I've been doing this 32, now coming on 33 years. I have done thousands of these investigations. I can tell you there is no sign of suicide. Here's how it got started. Tom was with two young people in a car. The night before, he got in his car and went down to Frank's and got his gas. Before they left, Tom said, "Hey, there's a song I want y'all to listen to." It was like any other kid's song. Yes, it was dark. Yes, it talked about dark things in the song. But if you'll go back 6 years ago, we were all going through a pretty dark time back then, right? Remember? And things weren't so good in the United States of America. And, and I'm not making that as an excuse. I'm just saying the song just talked about dark things. It had nothing to do with anything. So they attributed these 2 or 3 songs to, that's suicide. Second thing they did to this poor boy and his family is that Penny had a history where a family member went out on Lake Marvin Road, not anywhere near where his body was found, but at a small park, and shot himself. Okay, you had a family member that shot yourself. So what? What does that have to do with a young man that was maybe 5 or 6 at the time when that happened? How does that play out?
What's the saying? What does that have to do with the price of eggs or the price of...
It has nothing to do with anything.
Right. And the other thing that always stuck with me too, Philip, is that if you're going to kill yourself, why are you filling your car up with gas before you do so?
And you led me right into it. He filled up with gas the night before. Do you know why he filled up with gas? Because he was going to meet some folks over in Amarillo the next day. There was football coming up. There was a bunch of stuff going. He was talking.
Well, it would be a miracle. Philip, it'd be a miracle because if you shot yourself in the vehicle, how did your body end up away from the car? So are you saying
I haven't even gotten into the evidentiary yet.
Right.
I haven't even gotten into the evidentiary.
Well, let's get into it.
Also, with not a trace of blood drippings from the 2 locations.
Right. From the car to his body.
Right. It just...
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, you're talking about the second coming if he's able to, bring himself over there. So, yeah, we want to use this, and let's dispel all these rumors.
So,
break it down.
So here's the evidentiary. The evidentiary is the car is found inside the city of Canadian, Texas, 500 yards south of 400 yards south of an apartment complex, all right, near the sewer plant. His body is found as a crow flies 14.1 miles from the car location. Okay. Now, Tom at 5:58 in the morning would have had to park that car, get out of his car, and remember, what's the big thing that happens up there on Thanksgiving weekend? Do you know?
The sports events?
Deer hunting.
Oh, that's right. Deer hunting. Yes. One of the 2. Yes.
Deer hunting. There's deer stands everywhere out there. There's people driving in and out of that place with deer stands. Tom would have to walk across 5 different deer stands and deer openings, go across the Canadian River, then get on the other side in 25-degree weather with just a simple little OSU jacket, which was more like a windbreaker. He wouldn't have survived that. There's no way. People would have seen him at 5:58 in the morning. The sun came up at 6:20, I think 6:26 or 6:27 in the morning. It was actually full sun up at 7-something. People would have seen Tom Brown. People would have seen him out there on the deer lease. Okay, let's take that off the table. Maybe Tom got out of his car, walked over to the rodeo arena, walked over on the main highway, across the main big bridge, and then took a right on Lake Marvin Road and walked 12.1 miles. Doing a time distance study, right? Doing a time distance study, it would have taken him 6.2 hours to do that. Right? You got it?
Right.
6.2 hours. If he's walking down Lake Marvin Road. If he walks across, then it takes him probably about 7 hours. The horseback couldn't do it in less than 5 or 6, right? But everybody said, well, that's what he did because the dogs hid out there. Well, what they didn't tell you was the dogs did find a trail of somebody, and they ran it all the way to the creek, but they immediately turned around and went back the other way.
So, how does Deputy Gregory fit into all of this?
On the night of his disappearance, Pine Gregory went over to the house, which was Tom's house, and met with his mother and met with his brother. He got his brother in the patrol car that he was driving that night, and they went out and looked for Tom about 3:30 in the morning. They had some other calls that they had done about 3:30 in the morning. They had gone out and looked for Tom. He brought him back to the house at about 4:45, 5, somewhere in there, maybe 5:30, closer to 5:30, and dropped him off. The question was asked, well, where was Penny? Well, she was at the house the whole time. She was manning the phones. Where was all his little friends? They were out running around Canadian looking for him. His brother was with Pine Gregory. So at the same time, Pine Gregory goes back and drops him off. Pine Gregory has stated, yeah, he saw Penny's car, the Suburban. He saw Penny in the house. Now this big theory has come out. Well, the only person we didn't know where she was Penny. Well, we knew where Penny was. Penny's husband, Chris, was there, and Penny was there. They were manning phones. Where is this coming from now? And so it's kind of made up as you go, as kind of what we've looked at. So the same Pine Gregory was the same Pine Gregory that blocked us out on Lake Marvin Road. That same Pine Gregory is the same Pine Gregory that found, quote unquote, Tom's body. As we were putting pressure saying we're going to do another search as soon as it cools down a little bit, because the dogs can only work in certain temperatures. But what we told them is that we're going to get out and about and we're going to do it again. We feel like we've missed some things. That's what we told them. We feel like we have missed some things. And so that's, lo and behold, 2-3 weeks later, Tom Brown's body was found. And so does that help you all a little bit with Pine Gregory? Now, am I saying Pine Gregory did anything? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that my guess is if there was a cover-up, which we believe there was, we believe that it was an orchestrated record by a few people. So.
Well, I want to go back real quick. When Pine Gregory found Tom's body, what was his reason for allegedly being out there? He was
looking for deer shed.
Wait, so
at 2:00 in the morning?
I don't know the exact time because the OAG has kind of kept that away from us.
I had read some unsubstantiated rumors online, and of course, like you said, it's not true. All right, there were some rumors it was 2:00 in the morning while he was allegedly on duty.
Okay, but so is there an insinuation there on a cover-up of shoddy police work or the killing?
Either it was the worst job of police work I've ever seen by a Texas Ranger, a sheriff, and others that were trying to help them, or it was a concerted effort to conceal Tom Brown's body.
Late 2019, under a swirl of accusations and political games, the local sheriff, Nathan Lewis, was put under a microscope. First, he filed a lawsuit against the Texas Attorney General, who ruled he must uphold public records requests and turn over requested files to the family and journalists. Lewis fought the release saying it jeopardized the open case. He was then investigated for filing false documentation records for training hours for officers. Lewis ended up resigning.
Now, present day, summer of 2021. This case was set for a fact-finding grand jury to review all evidence to finalize whether this was a homicide or not.
So what they wanted to do was they wanted to impanel 13 men and women on a grand jury, one alternate, to hear evidence and then either do one of two things. Indict someone that's coming in there lying, put them on the record, swear them in. Left hand on the Bible, right hand up. Let's go. You swear to tell the truth. And if they don't tell the truth and the evidence shows completely opposite of what they said, indict them for aggravated perjury because they're probably going to be involved, right? Second, what it does is it gives the grand jury, 12, 13 people's eyes and ears, maybe we missed something.
But now, Killer Jeans is learning politics are still dominating the criminal investigation. Yet another hurdle for Klein, his team, and Thomas's family, and Thomas.
So we understand there is a hedging going on by the DA. I'm not saying we're not going to grand jury still. I'm not saying we are going to grand jury still. I'm saying a huge gray area has now erupted. And it has shed a firestorm out in our industry. I've got calls from investigators all over the United States, furious. What in the hell is going on down there in Texas? And we're like, we don't know. Tom Brown deserves closure. Tom Brown deserves an opportunity to be buried properly. And the person who did this, because there's no evidence Tom Brown committed suicide. None. The skull's in perfect condition. What did he do? Hang himself? Okay, where's the rope? No rope. It's just mind-boggling. And so that's what I'm trying to tell you.
So is there, in your mind, how many persons of interest or suspects do you have?
I got 2.
Interesting.
And honestly, with the AG's office making such a statement as saying Tom's mother covered up his suicide, that is a bold and very disturbing statement to make.
I listened to a lady in tears last night. This lady has been through so much. She's just numb at this point. She's numb. They go out to eat inside the city of Canadian and people stare at them. What they have done to this family is unconscionable.
It's affected her life's work, her passion as a teacher, as an educator. It sickens me. I wouldn't
be surprised if that small town goes after her job. Wouldn't surprise me one bit.
What's your message to the person or persons responsible for Tom's death? If they're listening right now, what is your message?
They are. Guess what? I'm not going anywhere, and neither is my team. So if you need to fear anybody, fear us. Don't fear law enforcement. They're off on a tangent where they think, it's a suicide and Mama hid the body. Easy way out. Guess what? Our team doesn't take the easy way out. We'll see you soon. We'll get you.
We spoke with Penny Meeks, but given the accusations by the Attorney General's office, she was not ready to go on the record with an interview.
We will continue to follow this case and provide updates as they come in. Follow Killer Jeans on Podcast One, Facebook, and Instagram at Killer Jeans, the podcast.